Hi.
Hello and welcome to
Of course,
China.
today we're here in a very impressive factory in Dongguan where WebB
Yes.
from Canada makes custom-made heavy-duty tow trucks that he sent back to North America and around the world.
Around the world.
Right, it's really nice around. I think we have one of the best backgrounds we have ever had for the podcast. What we're going to talk about today?
Well, we're going to talk about your experience coming to China. Why did you start this shop, and also why you are leaving Dongguan? That's something that I find very interesting because it's important for people to hear why people are moving around to other places in China.
Right, like moving to a bigger place, moving between cities, moving a factory. It's an interesting
Growing.
thing.
You said it's going to be how much larger?
It's 5 times larger than where we are now, so it's
Right.
it's a very huge, big growth spurt for us.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to talk about all of this in a moment.
Okay, WebB. Tell us a little bit about your story before coming to China.
Well, I grew up in a very small town outside Ottawa. Population was about 2,500 people, so it's a really rural farming community. And everybody had to repair everything. You know, everybody on the farm, it breaks, you fix it. And so I had this major mechanical background.
Mm-hmm.
And I opened up a shop. I sold my shop when it became successful, and then I started driving tow truck part-time.
You told me the other day you started at 16.
At 16 years old, yes.
16, you opened a shop.
Correct. Yeah.
That's impressive.
Interesting.
I was always very in tune with cars and trucks, and I loved equipment, so it was always my passion.
Right.
And when I was going through university, I needed just a little bit of money, so I drove tow truck part-time. So it was kind of like my part-time fill-in job. And then
Towing vehicles,
towing regular cars. But I always dreamed of driving a big truck.
Okay.
You know, because you drive this small tow truck, and your vision and your dream is always, I want to drive that big one. And you just see the big truck going down the highway, and you fall in love, and you're like, oh, I can't wait till I have enough money to buy one. So then I bought one, and when I bought one, I didn't know how to drive it. So I had to learn how to drive it. I had the money to
You
buy
just
it.
bought it first.
I bought it
and then-
first, and I didn't know how to use it. So
There's
it
a lot of
actually-
buttons in there.
Yeah, there's a lot of buttons. So
Yeah.
it actually sat for almost a year
Okay.
before I
For
had
real?
before I had the time to learn how to
You
drive
remember
it.
what truck was that?
Yeah, it was a it was a Volvo.
Okay.
It was a Volvo. It was like I didn't really know much about heavy duty trucks, so I bought it from a guy that was a friend of mine who he sold this truck to me, and after that we've become friends for life. So it's like a really big history. This friend of mine, and we're still in communication, because I remember the first day we went to go pick up the truck, and he was the salesman from the truck dealership, and he hands me the keys. He goes, "Congratulations on your truck." I'm like, "You got to drive it back," and he's like, "I don't know how to drive it," and I'm like, "I have a license, but I've never driven one." So we're kind of looking at each other, deciding who's going to drive it back.
How do you get a license to drive a truck without having driven one?
Well, I took the course.
Okay.
So I took the course, but I didn't have the on-road practical experience. I'd never actually driven one outside the course.
Right.
Wow.
How do you get? You said you were really into that, right? Like, was there any influence for you to always just personality? You always liked cars from a young age. What is it?
I think it's a combination of the community that I grew up in, because it's a very rural community.
Right.
Everybody worked on cars, everybody, and then I had that interest, and the interest peaked because, in the community, everybody drove, right? Like I was able to drive a car when I was 10 years old.
Right.
Not legally,
areas.
not legal.
Rural areas. Yeah, yeah.
You kind of have to depend on yourself.
Mm-hmm. So you got into that.
So I got
Right.
really into it.
So then you got your first truck. What happened after that?
I got the first truck, and then I just really, really enjoyed it. I loved it. I pursued some additional training through a program which I really believe they do a really good job on teaching how to drive heavy-duty tow trucks. And it's kind of becomes like a brotherhood when you join this training program, and it's called Wreckmaster, and it teaches you. And originally when I joined the training program, I went there just simply because I wanted a holiday. It was in a nice little spot. So I'm like, I'll take the course because it's a little vacation for me to get away with the family. And then when I got there and I took the course, I'm like, oh man, I really learned a lot from this course. So I continued my education through that program. And then I learned more and more about heavy duty trucks.
Right.
And then I decided that I'd love to build one, you know, and that became now my dream. So I own one, but I really wanted to build my own truck.
So that was, you're still young.
I was still young, yeah.
Right, in Canada. So, so then what? You open a bigger business with more trucks?
Well, my towing business grew and grew and grew. The towing business became the largest tow service operator in Eastern Canada.
Okay.
So
Can we say the name?
Yeah, it's Ottawa Metro Towing.
Okay.
And we were really big. It's a family business. So it just got really big.
It's the same, like the main name is the same, but it's just different, different thing you do with the Metro. This
Yeah.
is Metro tow trucks here.
Yes.
And that one is, okay.
Yes.
I see.
And you know, I did that for a while. Then what happened was the industry actually crashed. The tow truck service crashed. There was a lot of people that came in, and we were going through an economic crisis. So what happens is I opened up some auto parts stores because I couldn't make money doing towing service for you, but I could give you a discount on your auto parts.
Very smart.
So, you know, we kind of combined it, and the trucks would deliver your parts at first, you know, so a customer would call and say, listen, you know, the guy down the street can do it for half the price. And we're like, look, we can't do it because we have overhead, but we'll give you a big discount on your auto parts.
Right.
And our auto parts business grew. It grew, it became phenomenal. It grew to the point where our competitor bought us out.
Huh.
Wow. And that's, you're still 20 something?
Yeah, still,
that time?
Yeah, still a young guy. And so then that gave me time and money
Right.
to pursue my hobbies.
Mm-hmm.
And then I originally came to China as a vacation. It was kind of like a vacation trip. And
What year was that?
that was
When you came to
back-
China first time?
back in 1995.
95.
Ooh, 95.
Okay.
Yeah. So it just kind of just opened up my eyes to China. So then I had the vision of what could be done in China. I didn't really know what to do, but I had the vision of, wow, you know, this is
Why
this is-
China? Why China? Such an.
Of course, China.
Of course, yeah, but yeah, I mean,
Why China? It's a good, yeah. Why?
it was on my bucket list to visit. It was just one
Right.
of those
You
countries.
just like to travel?
Yeah, I like to
right?
travel, and it was a country that I'd never been to, and it seemed so exotic that I really wanted to come see China.
whereabouts in China did you travel to?
Well, I came in. I flew into Beijing. Oh, sorry, no, I flew into Shanghai, and then from Shanghai, I didn't really know the geography all that well, so I went from Shanghai to Shenzhen, back to Beijing. So you know, it was a little bit going back and
Zigzagging,
forth.
yeah.
Yeah, it was a zigzagging trip. I traveled all over China. I spent a month traveling China.
Oh, wow.
And I really, I fell in love with the country. I fell in love with the people.
Why?
It was just amazing. It was just, it was kind of like China was growing and it was opening up, and, you know, the people were so friendly, and it was
different, right?
It was
Very
really
different.
different. And it was, no matter when I went back home and I described it to people, they just couldn't understand China.
Right.
Yeah.
So-
I think that hasn't changed too much.
You mean the fact that people can't understand China
Yes, the people
before
who
they
have
come here?
never been to China, it doesn't register.
We, like I always
what it
say,
is.
we would know too.
Yeah.
If we didn't come here.
Mhm.
Right. You know.
All right, and then you ended up your holiday. You went back home, and
Then I had the China dream, right?
Okay.
You know, I had the China dream, and then I decided that I wanted to pursue importing the tow trucks. So I contacted a company. We imported some trucks
From Chinese company.
from a Chinese company. We went through the whole
This one, we were still talking about smaller tow trucks?
small and big.
Ah, and big too.
And big.
Okay, all right.
And so I came in here. I ordered the trucks. We went through the whole Chinese process of, you know, going back and forth, and even after the order, you know, price increase, change, this, that.
Yeah.
And for me, I was just so happy to get my trucks.
Right.
And then when I got the trucks, they didn't work.
Oh my God.
I was going to ask, how was the quality?
Yeah,
Okay.
so they didn't work. So what we did is we went back and then we asked the company to send some staff and we would teach them how to build tow trucks
Oh,
because we know
where
what
was
it
that
was.
company? Do you remember? In China?
It's here in Guangdong.
Guangdong.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in Guangdong, and so they didn't think we could get the visas. So we approached the Canadian government. We explained the situation that we had, and we're actually a very big toll provider in our city. Ottawa is the capital of Canada. There's a lot of government there, so we went to the government. We talked to them, and we were able to get work visas. So they were very, at that time it was early 2000s. So it was really difficult to get a visa to Canada.
Yeah.
So when we came to the company, we said, well, look, we'll bring these people to Canada to teach them and try and repair these trucks. And they're like, yeah, if you could do it, go ahead. And we did it. So then they're like, oh, what do you mean? You're taking our staff to Canada. And so we did. We took the staff to Canada for 6 months.
6 months.
6 months, yeah. And they had a phenomenal time. So we kind of introduced them to Canadian culture. We took them skiing, we took them skating, we took them to Niagara Falls because they came in the fall and they left in the near the end of the spring.
So this is a factory that makes tow trucks in Guangdong, and
Correct.
you already basically cooperated with them very closely
Very closely
by bringing people
Very
for
good.
6 months.
for 6 months.
Right.
So
How many people, sorry, did you bring to Canada?
12 people.
12 people. Wow.
Yeah, so it was a big expense.
First time for them to go
First
out
time
of China.
outside
Yeah.
of China, right? And at that time was in the early 2000s, right? So leaving China was something incredible
Yeah.
for people. It was just not something that just didn't happen, right?
It was on your expense.
Yeah, we paid all the
So
expenses.
why? What was the goal?
Well, we bought, we have a very prestigious towing company, and we bought these trucks. They didn't work, so we had a lot of egg on our face because we went back to our traditional suppliers who said, you bought from China.
See?
See you later.
Right.
Don't bother us.
Right.
So we kind of got stuck in a jam. So we had to try and make these work. And when you own a fleet, you turn over your trucks every so many years. So we're just like, okay, look, even no matter how bad they are, as long as we can get them to work for a short period of time, then we'll just get rid of them after.
But what's interesting for me is that instead of saying, "Oh, screw this," and go buy from another country or whatever, you were
You stuck with
finding,
China.
yeah, you stuck with China. You're trying to find a way to make this work.
Well, I mean, I really enjoyed China.
Okay.
I enjoyed coming to China. For me, it was a pleasure. It was exciting. It was an adventure, right? And it was just like, this is just a hurdle in the road, because my vision was that we could have this really big long-term cooperation, and I had this dream of building, my own custom tow trucks. So, I was just following my dream and my passion. And, the company was just there to facilitate that dream, but they didn't have the knowledge to what I wanted. So I'm like, okay, what's the big deal? I'll help you get the knowledge.
You
What
thought-
was the reaction? Sorry. What was the reaction of the factory itself? Let me tell you. For example, I have an English training center and I have teachers. If somebody else comes and says like, "Oh, bring me your teachers, I'll train
yeah.
them," like, why? I mean,
Yeah.
what was their reaction
Well,
when you told them this?
Well, they were amazed because they knew their product wasn't very good.
Okay.
So for them, it was exposure, and they didn't need to pay anything. So so they sent 2 engineers, they sent a bunch of technicians, so they sent a bunch of different people to learn the process.
when you say they didn't work, I mean, it's not like they couldn't
Start or-
right? What do
Yeah.
you mean they
Well,
didn't work?
normally it's just the equipment. So the equipment wouldn't match to our North American chassis, and the hydraulics had issues.
Okay.
So there was a lot of they were not a functional product that we could put on the road.
Standards were not.
And you
Yeah.
thought that this can be fixed, but I need to fix it from the root.
Correct.
I
So
see.
so what we wanted to do is the vision was this is long term. So we want to teach you. Okay, we
Right.
have a problem here, but we want to teach you how to make it better. Let's make it better. Let's not worry about anything else. We'll make it better, and it doesn't matter what the cost is, because it's just a learning
It's
experience.
long term for you. It's long term
Yes.
vision. So this factory, were they already exporting to other countries?
They
Those
were-
trucks?
They were just starting
Just
to
starting,
export,
okay.
you know. So they were just in the beginning, in the early stages
Okay,
of doing exports. They were selling domestically in China,
right.
you know, and they
Yeah.
were considered like a very famous brand in China. But the standard between China and North
Right.
America and the rest of the world is quite different.
What happened next? I mean, like that factory. How long have you been? Have you cooperated with them? After this 6 months, they came back to China. They made better trucks. What happened?
Well, what happened was they came back to China, and then we came back. We came back with another order, a reorder,
Right.
because we think it would be better. And what happened was the terms had all changed. The pricing had all changed.
Oh, suddenly you did not
All-
expect that.
Yeah, we didn't expect that. So what happens is, even though we paid all this money up front to train them, now our price went from this to a very high price where we couldn't be competitive to sell the trucks. So there was no financial advantage anymore.
But they didn't consider that
Help
they
them.
can continue because of you. No, okay.
No,
So it
no.
didn't work like that.
It
All
didn't. It didn't work like that. We got into a dispute,
Right.
and I'm an entrepreneur.
Right.
You know, my whole life, you know, I've always been. I don't worry about what needs to be done. I just go do it. So we had a meeting, and during the meeting, I'm like, listen, unless we can come to some really good terms, I'm going to open up my own factory.
Ah,
Aha.
it was
And,
your card.
Yeah, and they had already gotten a deposit from us
And
for the second reorder
they
because they
thought you
didn't.
were bluffing.
Yeah, they didn't think that I'd walk away because they had already my deposit. So they had the money already in their pocket, and they're like, if you think you're going to open up a factory in China, you go ahead.
Right.
And I'm like, okay. I said, listen, I don't want there to be any hard feelings. You know, how about I just want you to sign no hard feelings between us, that we'll still continue to be friends because the industry is very small, and then I'm going to open up my factory, and it's going to be good competition. And they laughed. They just signed. They said,
And
okay.
you let them keep the deposit.
I let them keep the deposit, and then
Right.
I walked away. And the next day, the very next day, I rented a building and opened my
So
factory.
what year was
Incorporated.
that? When was that?
That was in 2008.
And this is this?
No, this is.
You were in other places
There
before,
was
right?
another place.
So okay, so that's quite an amazing story, I have to say.
Indeed,
You know,
yeah.
very interesting, and you stuck with it with China. I bet you were very frustrated. You know, many times back then, right?
we've we've had a lot of Chinese experience. We've had a lot of good times and a lot of sad times, and a lot of times where I've called home and my family says, what are you doing
Yeah,
in China?
yeah.
Just come back here.
Right.
Just close it up and just come back home, because we've had the times where it's just been phenomenal, and you've had the times where you've just hit rock bottom. You come to a snag and you're like, okay, you're at the end of the road, and you're just like, I'm not going to quit. I'm not ready to quit. And you just push it, and then all of a sudden the page turns.
It's like the China bug, in a way, right?
You get hit by it.
Yes.
You get stung by it, and you figure out a way to make it work. I mean, we are all
yes,
here entrepreneurs.
Yes, with all the issues and problems on the way.
You've had
you're still
issues.
here.
I've had
Yes,
issues,
yes,
and you're
exactly,
like,
right.
I'm not walking away
It's some
from
kind of a
China.
bug, yes.
Yeah.
It's a good one, hopefully. But so from 95 to 2008, right? Mostly in the 2000s, the first years, right? You didn't have a factory yet here. You were coming here a lot? How often did you?
I was coming probably every 2 or 3 months.
Oh, okay.
So I started coming because, I was getting more excited.
Right.
I wanted to learn Chinese. I didn't have the time, but the interest was there. So it snowballed. It just the whole China experience took on a life of its own. And it was exciting because it was new, and I was building something, right? And it's not any different than somebody that has a hobby. It doesn't matter what the cost is, because it's your hobby and you just love to do it.
Yes,
And
you
this for
enjoy
me
every
was-
day. Yes.
Yeah, this was a big hobby.
And so until that point, that day that you rented your first building for a factory, did you have staff in China before that?
No,
You didn't. You're
No.
still one man.
one-man operation.
Right. So, okay, where did you rent? How did you find that building? How was it, the experience of finding that first
Well,
factory?
what happened was, because I had taken all the workers to Canada, so I had built a relationship. So I already started building a network in China of different people, my shipper, different people that I had relationships with.
You weren't walking in blind, basically.
Yeah. So I already had relationships with people. So when I walked out of there, I called a bunch of people, had a meeting with them, said, listen, this is my vision, this is my plan. I'd like to open up a factory. This is what I want to do. Can you guys help me? And they're like, what do you need? I said, I need a factory. I need to rent a factory that's suitable. So they got a list. They said, okay, here's a bunch of suitable factories that we think are good. I had no idea the geography.
Which cities did you look into?
I didn't care. I just wanted whatever they thought was best.
So where did you actually?
We wound up in a city called Panyu, which is like
Panyu.
a little
Near
sub-district. Yeah, the sub-district
not a
of
bad
Guangzhou.
place, yes.
Yeah, it was good. I loved it.
Right.
It was really, really nice, and it was quite an adventure.
Right.
You know, it was my first real experience into producing a product in China. And, you know, my staff, my potential staff, that's what they wanted. So, you know, we had no relation at that time. But the day that I rented, we entered into a relation because
So
that's what they wanted. They said, okay, this place is good. I walked in. I'm like, okay, this looks good. Negotiated the money and then just paid. I'm like, done, because I just need to get it done. You know, I didn't realize whether it was high or low. It was within my budget and it worked. So I'm just like, okay, we'll just get it done.
Right. Panyu.
Panyu
And how big was that place?
was around 2,500 square feet. So it's half the size of this.
Half the size of this.
Yeah.
And that you opened that and started making trucks?
We started building trucks, and it was mainly building for my own company.
Right.
So we were just building for Ottawa Metro Towing. And, you know, I was just kind of pursuing my hobby. You know, I built a couple here and there.
Were you buying the Chinese trucks or
No, we were just only strictly focused at North America
Okay.
when we first opened up in 08.
Right.
There's a little bit of an interesting story in 09
Right.
that occurred.
Right. So this is, Panyu. You stayed there for how long?
We stayed there till the end of 09.
Okay. And what was that interesting story?
Well, what happened was we start building these trucks. Then all of a sudden we get inquiries and the demand went through the roof. Like we just couldn't understand
Inquiries from North America.
it. North America and China local.
Okay.
So we actually built trucks for China that we sold to other companies. Because they were just like, you know, they wanted a tow truck, they wanted a good quality tow truck. So our profile became really, really high. So at the end of 09, we did a joint venture with a company because like our popularity just skyrocketed. You know, our reputation in the industry skyrocketed. So everybody's like, okay, these are the tow truck guys. If you want a tow truck, you got to buy from Metro.
you gotta go to these guys?
You mean back home or here or both?
Here in China.
Both.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Okay.
both, yeah.
So you started by making building trucks for your own company, but then it got popular and you were making trucks to many companies while you also have a towing company.
Towing
Wait,
company.
but what's the? I'm going to the joint venture. So what happened?
Right.
Well,
Something happened, you know.
Yeah, we entered into the joint venture, and we had to move our company to northern China, right? Into a province called Hubei, which is
Hubei,
yeah.
heavy industrial area, and you know we had no idea about China or what it goes, but it just seemed like they had a good option for us. So they came in. You know, we negotiated in good faith. We got 51% of the company. We put some money in. It was a huge facility. Everything looked really great on the surface. You know, from the surface, it was just like an amazing deal. You know, had some support from the government, supposedly. I'm not sure what happened with that. But anyway, so it was really good till we arrived 1 month after. And then the company stopped paying our staff.
Oh.
So it was, you know, and then anyway, so we
So it
wound
was
up.
quickly.
It quickly came
crumbled
to
down.
Yeah, it quickly crumbled down. We had actually lost $5 million US in the joint venture.
Whoa.
So it actually
Quickly, too.
very, very quickly, and it
Wow.
put us in a position of bankruptcy. So we were right at the end.
Of your China entity.
The China entity, it was done. You know, it was finished, and so we wound up. Now we had no factory to produce our product. We had lost all our money, and we were pretty well done. So what happens is I reached out to another contact of mine because you know you become very famous in the industry, and I called them up and I said, "Listen, I know you wanted to do a deal with us and we didn't do it. We chose another company to do the joint venture. Sorry about that. But however, we're in a little bit of a trouble. We're in a bit of a bind. Can we rent some space from you? And it was an existing company, a very large company in China, and they wanted to get into the tow truck business, but they were a government corporation. We thought we would go with a private entity because we thought it would be very hard to work
So
with
then you
it.
went back to them.
So we went back to them, and what they did is they gave us the availability of space. But literally, when we got there and we opened up our production in their factory, we were pretty well 30 days and we were done. We were out of funds. We were just totally done. Company's finished. And it was just a matter of, on the process of kind of like wind down, but you don't want to give up on that dream. You're just like, I'm not going to give up. And then,
That bug again.
yeah, and then all of a sudden, we got a really big, substantial order.
One of those lifesavers.
Yeah, and it just kind of came in. The guys came in to take a look. They take a look at it, and we had discussed the order. We had given them a quotation, and my view on it is like, look, I'm not going to get this order. This is a really big order. And then all of a sudden, the next day they called up. They said, we're issuing you the PO. We're transferring you the deposit, and it just
So
breathed.
lifeline.
Yeah, it just lifeline. It just like kind of threw gasoline on the fire, and it just went.
Okay, at this point, I want to ask this. Okay, so we always say, of course, China.
Yeah. Ziv, can we take a very, very short break
We
and
need
we
to
go
take a
to your
break.
question? Yes.
Okay, sure.
Don't go anywhere.
And we are back. All right, so we were talking about, you were telling us some stories from the beginning of having your own factory, 2008, 2009. First it went great, and then you had a big problem with a joint venture. And I wanted to, at this point, to say that, in this podcast it's called, of course, China, and we speak today about the China bug, and we are similar in that way. And I think some people may be watching and say, these guys are crazy. All these problems always happening.
Why do you say?
Why do you? So what I want to say, I want to have some maybe valuable advice for people that are doing business in China, maybe less years than you, or maybe are coming to China. You had a big problem with that joint venture in 2009, right? You lost a lot of money. How can someone prevent that? What kind of thing you could have done differently?
Well, I think the most important thing is for anybody that's coming into China on a big scale,
Yes.
right? And whatever that may be, they have a huge resource through their embassy. They have trade commissioners. And that was one of the biggest mistakes that we made early on in the beginning, is because we didn't engage the Canadian trade commissioners at the beginning of the joint venture. And they could have actually given us a lot of advice that could have avoided a lot of problems based on their experience. We wound up using them at the tail end when we had the problem and we were looking for legal remedies to fix
Right.
the problem. And the commissioner said, why didn't you call us at the beginning?
Right.
Why are you calling us only when there's a problem? You should call us and have us involved.
That's through the consulate, the
That-
embassy?
through the consulate.
Okay.
I know the Canadian embassy has it. I'm not sure about the other.
Many, I think, have
many
it.
have it.
Yeah.
But the other thing too is to engage with your local chamber of commerce. The local chamber of commerce has a huge resource, and that's another mistake that we made early on in the beginning, because we're just kind of doing it on our own, right? And sometimes you think that you're saving a little bit of money by not using a professional, but actually you're costing yourself a lot more money in the end when there's a problem.
So getting more advice on the ground from other people, maybe foreigners, maybe people from your country that know.
You
Okay.
also talked a lot about the importance of networking and having a network, and how well
Right.
you've talked a lot about how these workers that you took to Canada and the people that you've built a relationship with were very important in bringing you back up.
Yes.
So I think that's also a
Right.
really important advice.
Right.
Network as much as possible.
Yes. And in 2009, 10, I guess, right? You said you got that lifeline.
Got the lifeline, yeah?
Yes, and you got a big order. What's a big order in this kind of?
Well, we got a $3 million order.
That's
So
a lot of
that's
truck-
a- that's
a
a
few
lot-
trucks.
How many
That's-
trucks is that?
It was not a lot of trucks, but it was a very profitable order. It was
Right.
a very profitable order.
So that
And-
gave you the cash flow to
It-
restart.
It just like it basically threw gasoline on the fire. It just brought us back to life because
You were hot already.
we were hot, but we were done because we lost all our money, right? So we had no cash flow. So that order really brought us back to life.
Okay, and then so you
And
you
then
went out of that space in
then,
someone else's
then
factory.
we immediately outgrew that space,
Yeah.
and then we started looking for another location. We were actually in Huizhou, which is just
Huizhou,
yeah,
close
just
to here.
very close to here. So it's just south of Dongguan.
So that was your third or fourth really factory in
Yes.
a way
Mhm.
already.
Yes.
Huizhou.
And so that was our third factory,
Mm.
and this plant that we're in today is our fourth factory that we're in. And
Why did you move from Huizhou to here?
we were looking for the availability of space, and when we were looking around, so like we had a little bit more experience now of what we needed in a plant. So when we came to Dongguan, the very first thing, and the very 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 first impression, and I don't say that because we're on the Of Course China, but was picking up the Dongguan Here magazine. That really really opened up the door, because
Right.
we came to Dongguan. We were looking for some place to eat. We couldn't find any place. We got in. We wound up at One for the Road, and I'm not promoting
Right,
anybody
right,
over
right.
anybody else.
Yes.
And sat down and grabbed the magazine and looked through it, and that sold us on
Yes.
Dongguan.
If you don't know, here Dongguan is my day job.
Yeah, yeah. So, anyways, and like I said, it's just it's a
Right.
really true story, because we just
So
had
you connected with the community. you
Yeah,
said.
and it just like automatically, like you're in part of it. You can get around, and then we decided Dongguan was the location that we want to be in. And then when we rented this factory, this was just dirt. There was nothing here.
At what point? Okay, so we touched a bit about community, right? You moved from Huizhou to here, and you found a magazine. You saw the community. You liked it, so you thought, okay, this is a good place for me. Was your family with you already? How is that?
Yes,
That's-
yes, yeah. My family's been here on and off.
On
You know,
and off,
I've
okay.
brought my kids in and out, and
Okay.
so it's been, for them, it's been a big eye opener. Some have liked it, some haven't liked it. I have 3 additional brothers, so they've all been here for a period of time. You know, some
Okay.
have really liked it, some have come back many
Right.
times, and others are like, look, it's not for me.
You stay there.
How?
Interesting to hear that for you the social aspect of Dongguan played a decisive factor in setting up shop here, like
Right.
restaurants
Right.
and like a
Right.
certain community that you bring together.
Right, right. Yeah,
That's an interesting observation.
I think it's important when you live in China, right? We have the China bag, we like it, but we do need a community of foreigners as well, you know. And I guess you came to Dongguan at a time it was really getting
Exploding.
Yeah, more foreign restaurants, places you can enjoy leisure activities. Yeah,
Well, it was great for our customers too, because it wasn't just
Yeah.
a factor for us, right? Because a lot of our customers, they had a big concern about when you're asking them to come visit the plant in China, because a lot of the stuff that we build is custom. It's a little bit, some guy wants this, some guy wants something
A
else.
lot of input.
Yeah, a lot of input. And we'd have customers that would come and stay with us for a month. They'd come live here for 30 days. The first thing that they had on their mind was, what's the food like? And we're like, no problem.
No worries.
Yeah, no
Right.
problem. They're like, what's the environment like? No problem. And literally, they'd come here to Dongguan and they'd be just like, I love it. For some of the customers, this became their vacation. So they booked their vacation to
Right.
come, and for them, it was an adventure. Like, because they'd come, they'd stay here,
It's
they'd,
true, yeah.
they'd come to work at the plant every day. Like, I'd pick them up in the morning, we would grab our cup of coffee, we'd come in, we'd walk around, we'd make changes that we wanted. It built like a huge friendship. So it didn't become like, this guy's just my customer, I don't know you. It
Right.
became a personal friendship.
Yeah.
I think that's your style, right?
Yeah.
You are the only foreigner in China that does this.
Yes.
Yes. So that's very unique. Why do you think that is? Why other people like you from around the world,
Haven't done this.
yes, in China?
I think there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear about China. That's number one. Number two is there's a lot of misconceptions about China. What is China, right? And I think that really blocks people from following what they want to do. For me, coming to China, I had all the resources of the world. Like, I come from a small city. So, if I wanted to get something done in my city, I'd be waiting for 2-3 months to get it done. We don't have that availability of
Right.
resources, right?
Right.
And we don't have the population, we don't have the manufacturing. So for me coming to China, and I'm just like, Oh, I need this done. Oh, I could just go down the street and get it done.
Right.
So, the resources were just phenomenal here. That's, that was really a big attraction for me.
Now you build trucks in Canada as well, right?
Yes, correct.
Right. And I'm sure you know many people from around the world that do the same. What is there any difference in terms of know-how the Chinese employees that you have here, right? The difference between them and back home Canadians building this truck.
Well, I mean, there's definitely a big difference in the knowledge, because a North American person, they have the truck culture. They
Yeah.
have the truck culture,
The
they have the truck
18-wheeler.
bug, they're in love with trucks. Like for them, trucking is a pastime. It's a career, and it's a very well-paid career, but it's also a pastime, and this.
So they enjoy it.
they-
There is a kind of like a quality that comes with that.
It is, and there's a pride of workmanship, right? And me being here, that's why I live here. That's why I'm here daily on the floor, so that way I could instill that into my staff. So I try and get them to participate. So like I'll take them, like when this truck is done, I'll take some of my staff for a drive. I'm like, here, drive a truck, see what it feels
Really?
like,
Oh,
and
wow.
so when they go down the road and they have this big horsepower truck, I mean, it's like driving a Lamborghini or a Ferrari of trucks, and they're not used to it. They're driving.
They're excited. It's
They're
a
inside it, and they just see this truck, and it roars, right? And it's got 18
And they're
gears,
like-
and you're splitting the gears, and it's going.
And they probably
And,
giggle.
and then
yeah.
and then the engine brake comes on, and it's like, and it's roar, and and they're just amazed. They're just beyond amazed. They're just like, wow.
Tell us a little bit about what it is like to actually ship one of these things to another country, because you mentioned that and I was like, wow. So I would like our audience
I
to
think
hear
you're
about
jumping
this.
forward, but yes, let's
Yeah.
that is very interesting process.
Yeah.
Well, normally something of this size, what happens is we have two shipping options, which is called Ro-Ro or flat rack. Ro-Ro is a kind of drive-on, drive-off service. So you drive it to the port, and you drive it to the port, and then they just drive it onto a ship, and they tie it down, and at the other end they drive it off, right? So, but you need a lot of licensing to make sure that at the other end it can just drive off, right? The other option is what they call flat rack. So flat rack is just like a flatbed, and what we do is we get the truck ready, and then we order the flatbed and we order some cranes. So what happens is it comes in, and we have a staging area, so we stage everything, and then the truck comes up, and then the cranes lift the truck literally in the air. So you can see this thing like 5 meters high
On-
up in the air,
On the flat thing.
and then they put it on the flatbed.
How much does
okay.
it weigh?
This one here weighs roughly about 20,000 kilos, this one. But we can get
20
things that,
tons.
yeah, we can get something that's higher, that weighs more than this, right?
Right.
And
this
So
this
the-
is the,
The crane lifts it.
the crane lifts it, it puts it on, and then what we do is we tie it down, because there's a special process for tying it down for transporting it overseas. And then once it's tied down, we go over the vehicle, and we have to make sure it's fully clean, because people have had their hands on it. It's traveled a little bit, so it's got dirt on it. So all the dirt has to be removed off of it for shipping,
okay.
because it can't have any contaminations on it, like any soil or any plant or anything on it
Huh.
going into another country. So
Right.
we have it cleaned, and then once it's cleaned, then we have it tarped. We have it tarped, and then
You
we
wrap
have
it.
it sealed.
Right.
Yeah.
That's you said it takes a
It's
whole
a
day.
it's a full day process. It's a full day
And-
from
and
the
it-
beginning to the end of
and
the
it's
day.
expensive.
It's expensive. The
to ship
shipping
it.
is very expensive.
Right. Okay. I want to still go back and ask a little bit more about working with Chinese people.
Yeah.
Working
Yeah.
with Chinese people, because it is interesting that you actually have, I mean, before the pandemic at least, right, on regular times, a lot of foreigners working for you in China.
Yes.
And we were just saying, and I told you the other day as well, that seeing a mechanic expat, it's very unusual,
Yes.
right? Expats are not usually those kind of jobs. So, I mean, why is that? Is there any skills that it's too hard to get the Chinese up to par with?
Well, I mean, they're not used to seeing these vehicles. They don't exist. So the components don't exist. So they're not familiar with it. So, like everybody thinks a truck is a truck, but no, it's not. every truck is special. Every truck has something different about it, right? And there's different configurations, you know. And now what happens is trucks today are smart. So you have the smart truck, right? So what happens is they have computers on them, and the computers are connected to sensors, right? And the computers will only talk to you in English. So they're not going to give you any Chinese feedback. So what happens is this truck might not start, but you have no idea why it won't start.
But
It could be
it
it's
happens
in the
to
computer.
me in my car.
Because you have only Chinese.
Yeah.
Yes, the opposite.
So you need to have people that can go in there, take a look at it, and see, okay, diagnose what the problem is, what part do we need, and then ship the part to you, right? Especially today with like a lot of trucks have the emissions systems on them, and the emission systems are very complicated. And the emission system can actually, just from a truck sitting, it can wind up having a problem because they get stuffed up. So what happens is the only way to go in is you got to connect to it with a computer, you got to read the codes, you got to see what's going on,
Yeah.
and then you got to be able to take it out. So they
How-
just don't have that here.
How did the COVID pandemic actually affect your business? What were some of the repercussions?
Well, it was and still is very difficult for us because what happens is prior to the pandemic, we were in the process of opening up 2 additional plants. So we're actually building a plant in Canada, which is 66,600 square feet. It's a humongous plant for us. And we're building a plant here in China, which is 244,000 square feet. So we have these 2 huge plants that are coming in, and we had them timed that they were going to go at a certain time, and they didn't. So the pandemic, it basically stopped everything. So in Canada, we got stopped at getting building permits, getting government regulations, because now you couldn't physically go visit anybody in person. In China, it really hindered us because normally we shut down our plant for a month. All our staff was overseas, so we couldn't get them back.
During
So-
the new year.
Yeah. So
And then
during-
they got stuck out. So
They
a
got
lot of your
stuck-
staff got stuck out, including you.
including me, and I was stuck out for almost a year.
So you were building any trucks during this time you were not here?
No, we weren't here. We were just kind of finishing off.
Finishing off.
And most of our staff didn't come back
Okay.
because of the pandemic. So what happened is it almost kind of came to a standstill. The really odd thing, by luck only, is we had built up a pile of inventory prior to COVID because we knew we were coming into moving our plants. We knew we were opening up a new plant,
Right.
and so we're moving this plant. New plant is coming.
There'll
so
be a hiatus and an interim of time in which
yeah, so what happens is because of this plan, so what happened was we built up a pile of inventory in advance because we knew there might be a disruption in service. We never thought COVID would come in. So we were able to continue feeding off of our inventory.
While in that situation, many factories just got bankrupt. I mean, right? You
Yes.
didn't make any new product for a year, pretty much.
Correct,
Right?
yes.
So that was that was good. How is it? You have businesses back home,
Yes.
but you're here, right? How do you handle both? How do you?
Well, we are 4 brothers.
Okay.
We all run our own independent little business.
Okay.
So everybody's got their own business that they do. My partner in my core business is in Canada. He loves being in Canada. He loves the Canadian environment, and China is not for him.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of works out really good. So I do the tow truck equipment, and then he does the towing service. So we kind of feed off of each other. So it's kind of like in harmony. He needs the equipment, so I provide the equipment to him. He does the service, so it creates a flow for us.
Right.
So
do you also provide repair services for the trucks whenever they?
we actually provide repair service on the tow trucks, on our own product, and on other manufacturers' products. So if somebody has a problem, they can come to see us.
Anywhere in the world, like for example, the trucks that are bought here in China, or the trucks that are sold to other countries.
Yes, all over. And actually, as strange as it sounds, we have a really big following in China for people coming in to get their trucks repaired.
Mm-hmm.
So normally, like throughout the week, somebody will stop by and say, "Hey, can you fix this for me?" And we're like, "Okay." We just do it more, not for making money, but we just do it at building the reputation, the customer reputation. So if you go ask, like, let's say somebody in the local area who's a really good tow truck manufacturer. They'll just like,
These guys.
These guys are really good. And, you know, I went there, I got my vehicle fixed, I got treated really special, and they charged me almost nothing to do it because we just do it as a service, you know. So people will come in and
What kind of warranty comes with a truck like this? I mean, what kind of warranty do you offer? Like, I buy my car 3 years, 100,000 kilometers or whatever, but
we offer a 1-year warranty, no hassles, no questions.
okay.
I would like to know more about okay, where do you sell these trucks to, other than back home, Canada,
Yes.
right? And also, you know, we haven't talked about it, but like well, the first time I met you, you said you make tow trucks. I think tow trucks, you know, like for sedans,
Yeah.
for you know. So I think, oh, okay, tow trucks, you know, because that's what the regular person think when, you know. So, what are these trucks for? What can they do? You know, the regular
Gigantic.
people. Some people have never seen it in their life. In some countries,
Yes.
maybe, right? So, where do you sell it to, and what are they being used for?
Well, I mean, you could use it like, I mean, these are used for big jobs, right? So they're used for moving like cement trucks and garbage trucks and the big heavy duty fire trucks that are on the road and big accidents. A lot of our customers, like we have a lot of smaller governments that buy our product. So like, let's say, for example, one of our customers is the Thai government themselves. So they run a toll highway and they provide their own towing service. So we provide the trucks to them and they provide the service for their clients who use the toll highway. Another one of our clients we're building an order right now is for the Philippines government. So, you know, the Philippines is not a really big country. They don't have a really big demand, but, you know, they want a truck that meets their needs.
And 7,000 islands, so that's a lot of tow trucks.
Yeah, but, you know, I mean, they need one big one to service, you know, generally Manila area. So, you know, we're providing one and now they're considering buying 2 more. So, and that's normally what happens is normally we provide one order and then we get a reorder and a reorder and a reorder.
How much does this truck cost?
Roughly around 200,000 US for this unit.
This
in the
one,
back.
and it goes from I assume it can go triple than that.
It can go triple than that.
Right.
We have trucks that go basically, we have trucks that are very cheap. We can go from very cheap to very expensive. So you can go
Right.
from something that's, you know, $20,000-$30,000 to $1 million. It
Wow.
depends on what you want, right?
Right.
Do
So-
do you use them also for marinas, like to boats or large ships, things like that?
They can be. They are. Depends on where it is. One of our customers is the port in Kuwait. So they have a bunch of our trucks, and they use it for taking things on and off of the ships. So you know, our customers, like, you know, we have a huge following of customers in a variety of industries where they use these vehicles. For.
Anything that's heavy.
If it's heavy, we'll lift it.
And that maybe you already gave the answer to what I want to ask, but so this is custom made.
Yes.
Why does it need to be custom made? Why there is no any big companies that just make, you know, why people need to?
Well, I mean, it's all about truck culture, right? I mean, it's truck culture. You have to understand that, right? Where you know, your dream is to build a truck, right? And for most of our customers, you know, generally most of our customers are kind of like the mom and pop. You know what I mean? It's a husband and wife, and they have a small business, and their dream is to become bigger, and we help facilitate that dream. But we don't just help facilitate it with just like, here's just something.
Here's a solution.
Here's a solution, but we'll build a solution that's good for you. What do you want? You know, do you want, how much chrome do you want? How much money do you want to spend? Do you want to spend a little bit less here, a little bit more there? You know, do you want a custom interior? What is it that you want? We'll go back and forth with you till we have exactly what you need and build it for you.
The design too from the outside, right? We see some really cool stuff you've done.
Yes.
I saw on social media. Okay, so right now in this factory, that you said, I think you said 26,000 square feet.
This factory here is roughly 40,000 square feet. It's around 4,000 square meters.
4,000 square meter,
Yes.
and you are moving to a new one. So how many trucks you can make here?
Well,
per year?
generally here we do about 40 to 80 trucks a year. It's not a very high production, but it's a custom production. So, and it's very unique. And everything that we built is already sold. So everything that you can see in this factory is already committed. It's already sold
Okay.
to somebody. So there's nothing that we're building that doesn't have a home already. Other than last year by fluke where we built a pile of inventory and it all got sold. So we had it built, it was ready, it just sold out the door.
How long does it take to manufacture a standard, regular? Well, this is kind of
What is
like
standard?
more-
Yeah.
This one?
This, for example, how long does it take to build one?
Well, it can generally take from 3 months to 12 months. So that's general, the general depending on the configuration. So it could be something that's very fast and it could be something that's more complicated. So, you're looking at a year. So somebody that is buying a piece of equipment, they already know. And the nice thing about that time is that you have time to exchange ideas and change things
And
that if
revisit.
you don't. Yeah. So like, let's say, it's like building a house. You build a house and then all of a sudden you decide you need a window there. But putting that window in introduces a lot of other complications, right? That you need to do a lot of other things to make that window happen, but that window is well worth it. So, and it's the same thing with building a truck, right? So like, let's say somebody decides, I don't really like this, but I want this, it's a better function for me. And if we think that our customer's idea is a really good idea, we'll implement it into production. So we'll, like, let's say we're building a custom truck for you, but we think your idea is phenomenal. So we'll take that idea, we'll introduce it. Now it becomes a standard item on our production line.
And what's unique for you? One of the things, I guess, if I think of those maybe smaller companies back home, boutique builders, right? We see some reality shows about that as well, modified stuff. But you make the parts.
Yes.
You make a lot of these parts, or almost all of it.
We probably, I would say, at least 90% of everything on the truck is made by us.
Wow.
So it's not like you're getting parts from other places and you just put it together. It's not that. It's
No.
just coming from the ground up.
From the ground up. And what's pretty funny is that all our competitors in China, they say they make OEM parts for us, but they don't, because we actually produce everything from the ground up, because we just have such a good reputation. And if you,
Being attached to you.
yeah, they want to be attached to us. And actually, if you search, like a tow truck in China is considered a metro tow truck. So, that's,
Oh, wow.
yeah. So our reputation is just like beyond phenomenal.
What's your main supply? What do you need? I think you said steel.
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 Steel is our biggest component that we consume most of.
What about the engines, the chassis?
We buy those. Those are already manufactured by manufacturers, whether, it's a Kenworth or a Western Star or a Peterbilt. What we do is we already get like a chassis and then we modify that chassis for our needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So generally the chassis are already available. Sometimes a customer has a chassis, their own equipment they provide to us. We make modifications. Sometimes the customers make the modifications themselves. We have a lot of customers that are father and son or father and daughter or, a family, and they get together and they build the truck themselves. So what we do is we provide a kit, we provide the support, and they build it. There's actually a couple of shows that are on TV right now, reality shows where they show a couple of our customers building these trucks.
Right.
They
The
don't
names we can-
mention the brand,
okay.
But it's your trucks.
It's our trucks.
So do you put this is like a metro truck?
This is a metro.
Same like what is it? The other trucks companies, Volvo truck or whatever, right?
Yes, correct.
So how many metro trucks are there out there in the world now?
In the world, we probably have maybe 1,500, 2,000 trucks.
Wow. Okay. All right. So we need to take a short break, and we'll be back in a minute.
Talking about trucks.
And we are back at the custom-made heavy-duty tow trucks factory. And at this point, I want to talk about you moving a factory, right? This is going to be your fifth, the next one?
This will be our fifth one, yes.
Right, in China. And a few interesting topics about that. First of all, moving a place like this, right? I was just saying, it's not like moving an apartment, and we hate moving an apartment.
Yeah.
So imagine moving this. What can you tell us about the logistics of moving this?
Well, we've obviously moved. This is our fifth move, so we've got some experience in
Right.
doing it, right?
Right.
So, and there's a lot of logistics that play a big role in it. And one of the first things that we need to get done is we need to make sure that our plant is actually ready to accommodate us. So
Right.
we've been doing a lot of planning. We have kind of like a mock-up scale model that we kind of built just
yeah,
out of
that you showed. Yeah.
foam board,
Right.
just to lay out where the machinery is and what the working process is going to be and what's going to happen, what step happens first, what step happens second, this kind of thing. So we're doing that. We've got a few months left before we get it right, and then after that is coordinating with the shipping companies. We do a lot of shipping, so we coordinate with people that we know,
Right.
to move the stuff. And what will happen is as soon as our plant is ready, we'll start slowly moving. And what happens at this plant, actually, we're not producing anything new. We're just finishing off production. So
Right.
as we're tailoring off the production, there is starting up. So this is coming down, the other place is moving up.
This is not a one-day move, right? And the reason you're moving, okay, one is like you said, it's 5 times the size of this place, and but also something about, I mean,
Conditions.
they wouldn't renew. You said they wouldn't renew.
Yeah, our
your
lease
contract here
our lease
because-
is finished here. We've been here for 10 years. We've actually exceeded the 10 years, so we're on like a month to month right now. And what happens is we're right next to the botanical garden.
Right.
So what
yeah.
happens is all of this area is going to become housing. So at some point,
Right, and this is considered an industry that maybe they don't prefer at the moment.
it's not preferred anymore because we have a painting process, and it's because you're next to the botanical garden. They don't like the paint going up towards the botanical garden. We're so close, so
Right.
it's kind of like contract's done. Thank you. It's
Right.
time to move on somewhere else.
Right.
So the
Okay.
timing is good for us.
What happens to the people? Will they go with you, or are you
Yeah,
hiring
that's a
people
good
over there?
Well, what we have.
Because you're moving like an hour and a half away.
Yes,
Okay.
correct. So we've got a lot of experience in this, and this is actually a very big problem for companies in China. Moving, there's a lot of horror
Right,
stories.
right.
So the horror stories are crazy, from strikes to having a lot of problems with your workers. Because a lot of workers, what they do is they get established in the community.
Yeah.
So they have their kids in school.
Yeah.
They might have bought homes in the area. So they're very reluctant to move.
Yeah.
So what happens is we have basically 2 compensation packages that we'll offer to our staff. So we will have a severance package to our staff that stays here. So we'll just pay them the severance. This is what it is. Thank you very much
Do
for
you
all
have
the service.
to? They're required to?
It's legally required, yes.
Even though, I mean, they're basically leaving the company.
Correct. But
But because of the
underneath-
move.
because of the move,
Ah, okay.
we're legally obligated to pay the
Okay.
severance. So we'll negotiate. We'll pay a severance, and then we have a compensation package for people that are moving with us. So hopefully, the compensation package
Ah.
outweighs the severance.
Incentive.
The incentive is more, and they will have a tendency of moving with us.
That is interesting. But also, from how many employees you have here, which is, of course, less now because of the pandemic, you are moving to a place where, what's your plan for number of employees there?
Well, we're looking at starting off with 300 people on staff. So it's a pretty big jump.
Yeah.
It's a heavy number. Our company is going to become a much larger company.
Right.
We're expanding our product line. So there's a lot more opportunity for our staff for growth, for knowledge, for salary increases.
So it's you still just need to keep the core from here, but anyway, you need to find a lot of new people, right?
Correct.
Okay, and so in terms of you're moving to Xiamen,
Yes.
right? They have you told me about this new what do you call it?
There's a brand new industrial park that
Yeah.
they built up, and they've gotten some pretty big incentives for people to relocate their factories into it.
They're trying to pull Western foreign companies.
They're looking mainly for foreign companies. So what they're looking for is companies like us. So they actually came to us. We didn't go to them.
That is interesting. You told me this before. Yeah, can
Yeah.
you tell us about that?
Well, what happened was they went to the government agency that handles special purpose vehicles, and they started doing their research about tow trucks because they were interested in a variety of different industries. And they asked them who has the best reputation for tow trucks, and they said, well, Metro does. So they called us up and they wanted to have a meeting, and they came here.
That's 5
5 years
5 years ago
5 years of
already.
negotiations,
Yeah.
right? So they came here and they had a look, and for me, I would just, they're government officials. I gave them, the time of day, the courtesy. They looked around and they're like, wow, this is really good. Why are you not any bigger than this? That was the question. And we're like, well, here's all the problems that we have. And they're like, well, what if we can make that go away?
Wow.
And we're like, yeah, we've heard that before. Thank you very much. Said, and then they offered us to do a joint venture with the government. And we're like, absolutely not.
Okay, no
We've
more
heard
joint
that
venture.
before.
Yeah,
too.
done.
Yeah.
And they're like, look, and then we explained to them the experience that we had with joint venture and the problems. And they're like, look, we're the government. There's no problem. We're like, look, thank you very much. We're just not interested. It's
You
not.
did-
It's,
you-
it doesn't.
you
fit
don't need
what-
it at
Yeah,
the
it doesn't
moment.
fit
Right.
what we need. And they couldn't understand that. They're just like, what do you mean? We're just like, no.
What is it, a joint venture with the government? Basically, they give money?
Well, they become half owner of your company,
Yeah,
right?
but
Or-
why, what do they give?
They give money,
Tax
like
breaks
tax
or,
breaks, whatever.
stuff like
whatever.
that.
There's a
Okay.
lot of things. I mean, for me, I wasn't interested in even entertaining it because I'm happy doing what I do. I
Yeah.
build trucks. That's and that's what I explained to them. They couldn't understand like, but you could be bigger and you can make more money, and you could be all this. And I'm like, yeah, it's great, but I don't need it.
Which
That's a very strange position for a Chinese person.
which
to hear.
government which government people come to you, like talk to you about that joint venture? What kind of department is that?
It's they're from the industrial park.
Okay.
And,
so the
so-
industrial park is government.
It's government, yes.
Okay, and they have their own management by the government.
They're the
I
management
see.
team, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said no,
Yeah.
and then continued negotiating.
No, then they came back. Then they left. Then they came back.
Right.
And then we're just like, no, we're not interested. They left and they came back. They're like, no, you're going to be interested. And I'm like, well, just, because, in China, we have a life cycle, right? So it's the beginning and the end, right? It's a full life cycle of a production. There's a full life cycle of everything, right? And for me, I had gone through starting the factory, going through the joint venture, going through all the headaches, and I had gotten to the point where it was really good. I'm happy. I come to work every day. I'm happy. I'm smiling. I have my morning cup of coffee. I walk around my factory and I'm building trucks. And it didn't matter if I made money or not. It wasn't about money. I was just fulfilling my dream since I was a kid to build trucks. So somebody came to give me another offer, and I'm like, you know what? That's going to be a lot of work, and I don't want to do that.
I don't need it,
It takes away from what I do, right? Because I can't do what I want. Now I have somebody telling me what I need to do.
That's the main thing, I think.
Yeah,
right?
and I wasn't interested. So I was just like, look, I'm not interested. So we spent 5 years negotiating back and forth, and then we were able to come to a deal.
Mm-hmm.
And
Not a joint venture.
not joint venture, but it was a phenomenal deal for our company. Phenomenal, like unheard of.
So what the government offer you in the end? I mean, because we hear about that, right? In China, if you're strong, you come in with a big company, something they want, you can get a lot of good terms, right? What are the kind of things they give a company like yours?
Well, I mean, we have a preferential rental rate, and we have preferential policies for our staff. We have preferential school priority for our local Chinese staff. So if one of our staff moves from here to go there, they will
Their
get
kids.
the availability to have space to put their kids in school, in the public school system, which is actually cheaper than the private
Yeah,
school
yeah, yeah.
system. And we have preferential policy for home purchasing. So our staff has the availability to buy a home, whereas in Dongguan they wouldn't have that availability. So we have the government support for that, where the government will kind of give the incentive for them to purchase.
Mm-hmm.
it
So
really goes deep.
it's-
Like, it is just one industrial park, but they need to talk to many government departments to make sure that they can give you what you're asking for.
Yeah.
And that's it. Another thing you told me that's really interesting is you're planning to have eventually 100 expats, or
Correct.
so 100 foreigners on visas, and you had to get them to promise that this is going to be okay
Yes.
without conditions. You told me.
Yes, with no conditions.
So even what it means is, even it doesn't matter. He has a bachelor degree, doesn't have a bachelor degree. He wants them. He'll get a work visa for them.
Mm-hmm. It's a kind of knowledge that doesn't necessarily require a bachelor degree.
Right.
Like, for example,
Right.
you
It's
were
different kind of knowledge.
It's a different type of knowledge
Yes,
because
yes, yes.
I mean, a mechanic is not going to have a bachelor's degree,
Right.
but you
Mhm.
can't fix this truck unless you're a mechanic.
But he'll be a
Yeah.
genius for
but
that thing.
the mechanic has a mechanic's license.
Yeah.
So
Right,
so they do have
They-
credentials. You know
Sure.
what I mean? It's not like you're just pulling somebody off the street that doesn't
Yeah,
know
no, of
anything.
course.
You're pulling people that have some sort of accreditation, they have some sort of knowledge, and they can bring that knowledge to here, to China.
What advice would you give to someone that is negotiating in China for locating his company somewhere like that? From what you said so far, my main takeaway is patience. But what kind of other advice you can give?
Well, I think patience is kind of the first thing that you need to start off with. You have to have patience, you have to have your goal, and you really need to stick to your goal. If you don't get what you want, then you just have to be prepared to walk away.
This
That's
is
it.
so similar to stuff I used to hear 20 years ago about China culture, right? It was like they'll beat you down to it with their patience. So you need to,
You need to be patient.
Outpatience them.
yeah, something like that.
Well, I mean, for me, it didn't really matter. It didn't matter if I got the deal or not because I was happy.
That is strength.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
So it was just like, look, if I got it, great. Yeah, this is awesome. It's a new level. You know, it's a new direction for the company. But if I didn't get it, it didn't really matter. I didn't need to get it. It wasn't essential for me.
Right. And what's the cons? I mean, the pros and cons of moving there. Like you said, for example, you're moving away from a community that you like.
It's, you know, I'm really going to miss Dongguan. You know, Dongguan is a beautiful city. It's got phenomenal people. The culture here is phenomenal. Everything is really good. You know, Dongguan is a very mature city, right? And, you know, I'll miss it. But, you know, the adventure is going to be that I'm going to a new city where everything is going to develop. So I'm
Right.
starting at the beginning. You know, so the only word that comes to my mind is opportunity. So
Sure.
for me, I'm an entrepreneur.
What level city is Jiameng? Is it level 2, level 3?
It'd probably be like a level 4 city where we
Jiamen
are.
is
We're
next
outside
to,
of Jiamen,
it's next to Foshan.
next to Foshan.
It's next
yes.
to Foshan in the west.
Yes.
West from here,
Yes.
right?
So a lot of room for development. And
Yes, a lot of room for development. I guess what we saw in Dongguan 15 years ago, that's how it is now, probably. So, what's the plan for the future? You're going to have a 5 times the size of this one. Are you going to make other
Venture-
things, open new markets? What?
Well, we're going to be expanding on our product line. So right now we're mainly focused on tow trucks. So we're going to be doing tow trucks. We're going to be doing garbage trucks. We're going to be doing trailers. We're going to be doing recreational vehicles. So we're going to be doing truck RV conversions. We're going to be doing RV trailers. So we have a whole recreation line that we're going into. And this is because of COVID. So because of COVID, now in North America, the recreational line has just boomed. So, you know, people want to have family vacations, but they want to have that family vacation to themselves. They don't really necessarily want to be with other people. So we're going to be building houseboats. We're going to be building pontoon boats, the
Wow,
RV trailers. So this is going to be a whole new product line for us.
Would you go as low as van conversions?
We may because it's the same. It's the same thing for us, right? You're just doing interiors, right? But the problem with the van conversions, that's depending on how the market takes off. That might be something that we would do in our Canadian plant because some things are just not profitable.
Yeah,
So, like,
to build big things.
yeah, we build big things because it's more profitable for us, you know. And it, you know, with the cost of the shipping and the length of transportation and everything involved, it has to be something big. For something small, you know, like let's say like a van conversion, that's something that our Canadian plant can do, but we can provide all the materials for it.
You were talking about RVing and how this is important for West, for the North American market. How popular is RVing in China?
It's becoming more and more popular. It's really starting to take off. But what happens right now is China still needs to develop its driving culture. Because, you know, RV is a whole subculture of itself, right? So, you know, RVing, the RV family, the RV parks, you know, there's a lot of things, a lot of infrastructure that's not here yet, but it's coming. And when it comes, it will actually explode.
Yeah,
Right.
we were touring Qinghai in the west of China, and I was surprised to see quite a lot of RVs out there and some infrastructure for RVing, but
Yeah.
basically like parks, they buy the RVs and they rent them as if you were going to get a room in a hotel, but people don't drive them around too much. A few, but
It's interesting, all these like Western cultures that keep coming here. You know, like maybe the truck culture will develop, right? RV, there are factories, right? I think there are people that did YouTube videos about that,
Yeah.
and but you know, sometimes it comes here and it's not exactly the same culture. It's maybe the same product.
I want to ask you a little bit some clarification when you talk about truck culture, because China is the factory of the world. Dongguan was the factory of the world, and all the containers are moved by trucks.
You mean there are many truck drivers in China? Let's just
Yes.
yeah.
So what's the difference when you talk about truck culture as opposed to the amount of trucks that are on the roads in China? Isn't that truck culture as well, or
No, because see, North American truck culture is quite different because it's considered like a luxury, right? So people spend a lot of money on these trucks.
oh yeah,
They have a lot of chrome, and normally you'll see a truck driver. You know, he'll put his cowboy hat on, he'll put his cowboy boots, he'll have a nice jean shirt on, and he's driving that truck. Like, you know, he's having the pleasure of driving that truck. You know, whereas here they just want the lowest horsepower. They just need to get from A to B. There hasn't been that developed that really big culture following, right?
understand.
You know, and I mean, in North America, we have a lot of country music that's just focused for truckers, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know Chinese music, so I don't know if it exists, but I know in North America, it's
I don't
very,
think they got truck driver
you know,
music
they got
here.
they got all these truck driver songs, you know, like, and people are driving, and so it's a full culture, right?
They got
I
a truck
understand.
culture here. No shirt,
Yeah.
leg on the window.
Yeah.
The bikini. The
But you think this is something that will develop in China, possibly?
I do think so, because what happens is because the cost of labor is going up in China, right? So generally, transportation in China is pretty cheap. Like inland transportation in China, my opinion from coming from transportation in North America is very, very cheap. And that's why that culture hasn't developed yet, because transportation in North America is you can make a decent dollar.
Mhm.
So, and once that develops here, that you can start to make decent dollars on these, people will spend more money on that truck. They'll spend more money
Make it
on
more
the lifestyle.
comfortable. Do
Yeah.
you have like a bed in this particular truck?
This
Yeah.
one has
Yeah.
a bed.
You see?
Yeah.
There's one
Yeah.
thing that I'd never experienced. Once you get on the driver's seat, it's got springs.
You know, my
there a
Fernando,
reason
maybe
for
I
that?
told him, I
Yeah.
didn't tell you.
It-
My dad was a truck driver.
Oh.
And yeah, the first thing when I came here is like, oh yeah, there's a bed back there. I remember many times sleeping in this bed.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
What about the seats? Why are they?
Well, they're air ride, so that way it's easier on your back, right? And the trucks are air ride suspension generally in North America, so that way it's for comfort, right? It's for
Mhm.
driver comfort. You know, a lot of the trucks in China, the seat is just bolted on, right? It's bolted on, so you know every bump that you hear,
Travels.
pum, pum, pum,
again,
pum.
it's comfort. Imagine they drive 10 hours straight, many days,
Yeah.
right, in America
Mm,
Yeah.
or more.
Yeah.
So you really need to be super comfortable.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, you know, these trucks, you know, I mean, they're some of them, just the luxuries in them are just phenomenal.
Mhm.
You know, it's to whatever level that you want to have in that truck. You
What-
know, there's no limit to it.
When did it start in North America, the truck culture?
I think the truck culture started back in the late 70s with all the movies, with the, you know, you had the Smokey and the Bandit
Oh, yeah.
movies, and that was all the, you know, the 18-wheeler, you know, so, and then the music, you know, the different country music songs. So I think at that point, the culture started to develop, and
Is
then
it U.S. first?
U.S. first, yes,
Right, and then Canada.
then Canada, yeah.
Right.
Is truck culture existent also in Europe, in a way?
Yes.
I think in a way, yeah.
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 I mean, they
Yeah.
have trucks, of course, but the same pride of owning a truck of a certain.
I think
Look
yes,
or-
but I think USA is famous for it, or North America.
USA is the most famous for it,
Yeah.
right? Because it's so prominent in social media, in music, in movies.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It's promoted, right?
It's a cowboy thing in a
It's
way, not
yeah.
cowboy, but you know what I mean. There is a macho.
It's a very
It's a
macho
lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle, and it's a very macho industry.
It's
Yeah.
it's the idea of being on the road, and I'm on the road again. You know, like
Yeah, I remember from like the gang when my dad was driving. There was I think one female.
Yeah.
And everybody knew her.
Yeah.
Like and
Well, there's a lot more female truck drivers now because the trucks,
sure.
you know, a lot of trucks are automatics. You know, whereas before that wasn't a big option or it wasn't a good
there are
option.
automatics
Mhm.
now.
Yeah, so there's a lot of automatic trucks. You know, a lot more women are just falling in love with the culture. They're like, yeah, I can
Not
do
to
this
say
too.
that women cannot drive.
Manual.
Manual. No,
Yes.
some of them are phenomenal.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Some of them are phenomenal manual drivers,
Yes.
right? But it's that one extra step.
Right.
You know, you just hit the button and you go.
Are there any kind of driving assistance that has been developed through the decades that are implemented into these kind of trucks?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of new technology that's coming in
Mhm.
into trucks, which is just making them safer, and that's being developed over a lot of time. What happens is now a lot of them are coming out with the special braking systems. So
Mhm.
then that way, if somebody runs out or a child runs out in front of you, the truck will actually stop by itself.
Mhm.
So this is new
Oh.
technology.
Radars and
That's
Yeah.
the.
later?
There was something it started in Israel. Mobile? I don't remember.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah, but you know the technology is coming there. You know the
Mhm.
trucks are becoming safer. There's a lot of what they call anti-roll devices that are getting put on trucks now.
Mm.
Bendix is really famous for that. So that way, when the truck starts to lift and it's just getting close to its center of gravity, it'll adjust itself. So they're doing
Wow.
a lot of testing on that.
Is it correct to say that this kind of truck would never be electric? I mean, not in our lifetime.
I don't know. You know, I mean, it takes a lot of these trucks need a lot of horsepower and they need a lot of torque
And
to
they
go
need
down
to-
the road,
to
and they're
go a
pulling
long way.
and they're going long distances,
Yeah.
right? So, you know, maybe
Maybe. one day.
hard to say.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I mean, you know, we're looking at, you know, self-driving cars coming out soon, right? They're already out there being
Right,
tested, right? You
right.
know, will there be a self-driving tow truck? Not likely,
Not likely. You
because
need to
you
do
need
other
to get
things.
out and do a whole bunch of other stuff, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but we just don't know, right, where technology is going to take us.
Tesla Semi is already out,
Yeah.
but yeah.
I think there is more time that regulations and different kind of things. Now, so how long are you planning to stay here in China? What's your plan for the future? Like you said, this is almost like your hobby. You don't really have to do this,
Mhm.
you know?
Well, I mean, you know, for the foreseeable future, like, you know, now I've gotten into a really long-term commitment with the new
Right,
factory,
right.
you know, a lot more employees, you know,
Yeah.
so as my commitment is long. How long will I be in China? I'll probably be here for a while unless somebody decides to give me a big check and say, it's time for you to leave, you know, and then I'll be more than happy to move on to the next chapter
Do
in
your
life.
friends or family and people from around the world sometimes think you're crazy?
Oh, they really think I'm crazy. You know, even, you know, like, you know,
It's a
somebody
common-
telling you that, you know, I decided to go and build tow trucks in China, right? You know, it's kind of really bananas. And speaking of that, like what happens is when I first came to China, I had a meeting with my staff. So we had this big company meeting, and I had this staff meeting, and I was talking to them about my dream, coming here to China to build tow trucks. And I'm like, if any one of you want to come, you're more than welcome to come with me on this adventure and this trip. And everybody's like, yeah, I'm going to go. But only one person showed up. And they actually showed up in China. And they were my newest employee that I had never even met. I didn't even know the person's name. So when they showed up in China, they're like, hey, I'm Steve. I'm like, you're who? Who are you? Yeah, you know, I was at the company meeting, and, you know, I work for you, you know. And I'm like, well, you better wait there because I don't really know you, you know. So, like, you know, and then I come back, oh, you're Steve, right? You know, because I had to call. Does this
Yeah.
guy actually work for us, right? So, you know, and
And you can't-
lifelong friend, and, you know, like, he'll come and he'll stay 6 months with me in China sometimes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds like that Jerry Maguire moment.
Yeah.
Come with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this lineup of metro tow trucks. Do you manufacture or have plans to manufacture like firefighter engines?
That's what it looked like a little bit, right?
Yeah, like
you
a
can
fire
do that.
engine.
We do. It's in our product prospectus that we're
Mhm.
going to be doing in the new plant. You know, obviously the new plant, we have a lot of government support, so we have incentives to build other products. You know, so the government will, you know, for every patent that we get a certain incentive. For every new product that we get, we'll get another incentive. So, you know, the government's really encouraging us to grow our business.
When you're going to develop a new line, for example, like this fire engines, how do you get the expertise about what's required or
Well, it comes back to what I said. What's very important is networking. So let's say for the fire trucks, we have a person that we dealt with on our towing business side who was with the fire department for 30 years, and they just retired. So they're like an expert. So we will bring this person from
Advisor, expert. Yeah.
You know, he's an expert, and he's bought, you know, hundreds of fire trucks. He knows basically everything possible to know on a fire truck. I don't know anything about a fire. I know how to tow it. I can move it from A to B, right?
Yes.
But this guy is the expert, right?
Right.
So, you know, and that's what's really important for us to keep like that big network, right? 'Cause
Network.
you just don't know when you're going to need that
Network.
person.
All right. So maybe I'll ask one last question.
Sure.
And you've been here for a long time in China, and you do what you love, so you don't feel like you work, right? But you did have some issues in the past with partnerships, and you lost a lot of money. In the end of the day, is China been profitable for you in a massive way?
Oh, I think China has been phenomenal. It's really been phenomenal. I know there's some people that, you know, get frustrated and leave, and there's some people that have different views, but I mean, from a product development point of view, I couldn't have done it anywhere else in the world because the expertise is here. So I have no regrets about coming to China. You know, it's not about anything else. I had a dream, and through China, I was able to fulfill my dream. So
That's a great last note.
Yeah,
Yeah.
excellent. Well, we want to thank you very, very much for your time. This is, if I dare say, one of the most exciting shows that we've done so far. So those of you who've been before, don't take offense, but this is really, really cool.
Yeah.
I think as a kid, you start playing with your Tonka trucks and whatnot, so this is really, really cool. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for
Yeah.
showing us around.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a shame we didn't meet years ago. You're moving away, but we're still an hour.
yeah,
An hour
Gives us a
apart.
reason to take it
Yeah.
on the road.
Yeah, to take a trip to see your new place. And yeah, that's actually would be interesting. I was just saying before that imagine like a time lapse of when they ship a truck or when they move the factory, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
well, we definitely love to invite you to come to take a look at our new plant and take
Yeah.
a look at where we're going, and you know, take a look at the new chapter of Metro. You know, our growth and
Yeah.
you know our China story and our China dream, right?
Cool.
And you know, we're more than happy to share that with everybody.
thank you for having us today.
All right.
Right.
Now you do the closing of this.
Oh, I do the.
social episode,
You're
yes.
like sitting like.
Let's see how you do
Okay,
it.
so if you enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up. It will really help us a lot. And if you want to see more content coming out, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. You don't have to hit the bell button, but you can if you want to. All right, and then
Don't forget to share this content to your heart's content. It really, really helps. All right. Well,
Okay.
again, thank you so much. And this has been, of course,
China. Bye bye.
bye.